One of the stories that kind of has come out in the last couple days, and people referencing it here in the chat, is Trey Lance has spoke, and MF says Trey Lance says, "I love it here, and I don't ever want to be anywhere else." Now, when I saw that, that makes me feel really good about the future because I think I voiced it to you. It might have been to Grant. I definitely have talked about this over the last week or so, that if I were Kyle, if I were Lynch, if I ran this show, before I do anything with my quarterbacks, I need a sit down with both to just find out where their headspace is at, because it's not your typical competition. You got two guys who really kind of both, I'm sure, have designs on starting and never thought of themselves as backing up. Purdy backed up this year and then ran with his opportunity. Trey backed up last year, was going to be the starter this year. But my big concern is that, hey, you know what? If Trey wins the job and Purdy's the backup, is Purdy going to be happy as the backup, or at least happy is not the right word. Maybe is he going to be content to be the backup and stay with the Niners, or is he going to say through his agent out in Nashville, hey, you know what? I want out of here. And if Brock wins the job, is Trey, who's clearly needs to play, I think we all would agree with that, would his agent respond to him losing the starting job as, hey, man, get us out of here by October? Because that's the spot, if you're Lynch, you don't want to be in. All right. You don't want to be in that, hey, you got 30 days to make a trade, and you got your locker room now picking sides and fracturing. I'm not saying that would happen for sure, but it's got potential for that. To me, for Trey to come out and say, I love it here, I don't want to be anywhere else, to me, that sounds like he's committed to being here, whether he's the starter this year or not. And, I think I was talking to Matt Barrows, and Barrows said that he kind of thinks that both quarterbacks are kind of looking at this, macro long term, and not necessarily, if I'm not starting week one, get me out of here. What's your read on the kind of the headspace of the two guys as this competition gets underway this summer?
I think, and actually, I heard you talk about that on Grant's show is where I heard you talk about it. And I agree with you. I mean, it is important. I think the 49ers have done a good job in drafting good people who are leaders. And that's what both these players are. They're both good kids with their heads squared on their shoulders. They're good. And so they want to compete. They want to both be starters. But Trey already has proven that he can be a helpful person behind the scenes. He's proven that. He did it his rookie year. He did it again last year. And I think Purdy also has proven that. Purdy started as a third-string quarterback. They both are willing, I believe, to put their ego aside and do whatever it takes to help this team win. Now, if at the end of this year it is clear that one of them is the starter and there is no swing, one didn't get injured, we just see one guy all the way through, whether that is Purdy or that is Lance, then I could see a situation where the other one's like, okay, it's probably time to part ways here. But I think going into this year, if you sell them both that it is an equal competition and allow it to play out, heck, we might see both of them anyways. We know how quarterbacks get injured around here. So I think they'll both be patient. They'll bite their time. They'll do what they can to be good teammates. I think it's after this year that you probably have to start worrying about those things.
Yeah, I kind of agree. But it does make this year, I don't know. I mean, what do you think this year's going to be like? Because the way it goes. You win a game, that's fine. Starters, everything's right with the world. You lose a game, and suddenly it's like, hey, the other guy would have won. What I mean? And it doesn't really matter if it's Trey to Brock, Brock to Trey. That's just kind of the way it goes. Should we all just kind of wrap our arms around that and just kind of acknowledge that that's kind of the conversation around the sport? Or is there anything that could kind of preempt that from actually happening in your mind?
I don't think there is. And I think most of that talk is going to come from obviously the fan base and the media. I'm sure players pick sides. I mean, they're humans as well, but I don't think that that's really going to impact whether they play hard or win or lose. To me, Kyle's the one that makes the ultimate decision though. And I get the feeling maybe you get a different feeling. I mean, you're in the locker room, but I get the feeling that once Kyle makes a decision, he's going to ride that thing out. He plans to ride that decision out until the very last moment where it's like, okay, we're one game away from possibly not making the playoffs here. Maybe it's time to go the other way. But, up until a 3-5 start, Jimmy was going to be the guy. And then all of a sudden Lance came in. Jimmy wasn't quite healthy. If Lance had stayed healthy in the Cardinals game, it sounds like in the Colts game, it would have been Trey's job, but it took a while to get to that point. He gave him plenty of leash. And so I just have a feeling that he's going to make the decision. He won't allow it to be a controversy. And every time the question is asked after a loss, he'll be like, yeah, we know who our quarterback is. And he'll keep it pushing. So I don't think it'll ever be like a real big issue, at least in Kyle's mind.